The Galactic Council Chamber stretched for miles in every direction. Crystal towers rose toward an artificial sky that displayed the swirling lights of distant galaxies. 12,000 representatives from 800 different civilizations filled the massive amphitheater. Some floated in anti-gravity pods. Others breathed through tubes connected to specialized atmosphere tanks. A few existed as pure energy, their forms flickering like flames against the cold stone seats. In the center of this impossible room stood a single human. Marcus Webb kept his hands steady at his sides. He was the first human to ever stand in the defendant's circle of the Grand Judgment Chamber. His simple gray uniform looked almost primitive compared to the shimmering robes and glowing armor worn by the alien delegates surrounding him. The translation device in his ear converted thousands of hostile whispers into a single message. Humanity was not welcome here. High Arbiter Voss rose from his elevated throne. The Corinthian leader stood 12 feet tall, his body covered in black armor that was actually part of his exoskeleton. His 4 eyes glowed with cold blue light as he looked down at the tiny human below. "The Terran representative will explain," Voss thundered, his voice echoing through the chamber, "why humanity has violated the Sovereign Species Protection Accord. You have harbored a fugitive of the Dominion. You have destroyed Dominion military property. You have spread lies designed to destabilize galactic peace." Marcus did not flinch. He had faced worse than angry politicians. He had survived Tempest 9. "I would be happy to explain, High Arbiter," Marcus replied. His voice was calm and clear. "But first, I need to tell this council a story." Gasps rippled through the assembly. No defendant had ever delayed proceedings with a story. Ambassador Krell of the Dominion rose from his seat, his 3 purple eyes blazing with fury. "This is an outrage," Krell declared. "The human seeks to waste the council's time with tailies and distractions." "The human," Marcus said, turning to face the ambassador directly, "seeks to show this council the truth about what the Dominion has been hiding for 400 years. The chamber fell silent. Even High Arbiter Voss paused, his mandibles clicking with curiosity rather than anger. 3 weeks ago, Marcus continued, I was stationed alone on a planet called Tempest 9. I was a scientist studying weather patterns in microorganisms. I expected to spend my days in quiet research. Then a storm came, and during that storm, someone ran into my shelter seeking safety. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle over the assembly. She froze when she realized a human lived there. She had been taught her entire life that humans were monsters, that we eat other sentient beings, that we cannot be trusted. Marcus looked directly at the Dominion delegation. She learned differently, and what she discovered during those 3 days in my shelter threatens to expose every lie the Dominion has ever told. He pressed a button on his wrist communicator. A holographic display flickered to life behind him, showing a barren world ravaged by electromagnetic storms. It began on this world. It began when Lyanna of Vela Prime ran into my shelter. And by the time that storm ended, we had uncovered a conspiracy that reaches into this very chamber. In the upper tiers of the amphitheater, Ambassador Krell's purple face turned pale. Marcus smiled. Shall I continue? 3 weeks earlier, Marcus Webb sat alone in Research Station Theta 7, watching the approaching storm through reinforced windows. The electromagnetic tempest filled the horizon with crackling purple lightning that stretched from ground to sky. His instruments showed it was a Class 7 event, the most powerful storm category on Tempest 9. It would last 3 days. Nothing could survive outside during those 3 days. Marcus was ready. He had spent 11 months preparing for this exact scenario. His shelter was reinforced with triple-layered shielding. His supplies would last 2 weeks. His communication array was safely disconnected to prevent the electromagnetic pulses from destroying it. He was completely alone, 400 kilometers from the nearest settlement. That was exactly how he wanted it. Then his proximity sensors detected movement. Marcus frowned at the screen. Something was approaching the station on foot. That was impossible. No transport could land in these conditions. No creature could survive the acidic pre-storm rain that was already falling. Yet the sensors clearly showed a single life form stumbling toward his location. He moved to the viewport and squinted. Through the chemical haze, a figure emerged from the rain. It moved on 2 legs, but had 4 arms that waved weakly for balance. Its skin was silver blue, glistening with the corrosive moisture that was slowly burning through its thin clothing. Large eyes, designed for darkness, squeezed shut against the harsh light of the approaching storm. Marcus recognized the species immediately. A Veilani, one of the Dominion's most loyal servant races. They administered planets, managed records, and never traveled outside Dominion-controlled space. What was a Veilani doing here, on a human research world, walking through lethal rain? The figure collapsed against his airlock door. Every protocol told Marcus to leave her there. The Dominion and humanity had barely avoided war for decades. Helping a Dominion citizen could create diplomatic complications. Opening his shelter during a Class 7 storm was dangerous. Marcus opened the door anyway. The Veilani female fell inside as the outer seal hissed shut behind her. Emergency decontamination sprays washed the acid from her skin and clothes. The airlock cycled, purifying the atmosphere. When the inner door finally opened, the Veilani looked up and saw Marcus clearly for the first time. She froze, her large silver eyes went wide with pure terror. Her 4 arms pressed against the wall behind her. Her bioluminescent skin markings, which Marcus knew indicated emotional state, pulsed in rapid patterns of fear and distress. "Please," she whispered through the translator. Her voice shook. "Please do not eat me." Marcus stared at her. Of all the things he had expected her to say, that was not one of them. "I am not going to eat you," he said slowly. "I am a scientist. This is a research station." She did not believe him. He could see it in her eyes. Everything she had ever been taught told her that humans were predators, monsters, creatures that consumed sentient beings for pleasure. Outside, the first electromagnetic wave crashed over the station. The lights flickered. The walls shook. The storm had arrived. They were sealed inside together for 72 hours. Marcus noticed the wound on her shoulder. A burn mark. The kind made by military-grade energy weapons. Someone had shot her. Someone had tried to kill her before the storm hit. She had chosen to risk death in a Class 7 tempest rather than face whoever was hunting her. What could possibly be worse than certain death? Marcus knelt down to her level, keeping his movements slow and non-threatening. "The storm will last 3 days," he said gently. "You can trust me or not. That is your choice. But you need to let me treat that wound on your shoulder, or you will be dead by morning." The Veilani looked at her wound, then back at Marcus. Tears formed in her silver eyes. "My name is Lyanna," she whispered. "And if I tell you why they want me dead, they will kill you too." Marcus nodded slowly. "Then I guess we both have a lot to talk about." Outside, the storm screamed against the shelter walls. Inside, 2 people from opposite ends of the galaxy began to realize that everything they knew about each other was wrong, and somewhere in orbit, hidden behind the moon of Tempest 9, a Dominion warship waited for the storm to pass. The first night of the storm was the longest of Lyanna's life. She sat in the corner of the shelter, her 4 arms wrapped around her knees, watching the human move around the small space. Every movement he made sent fresh waves of fear through her body. She had been raised on stories of human cruelty. Her teachers had shown her footage of Earth's ancient wars, images of violence and destruction that made young Veilani children cry themselves to sleep. Humans were monsters. Everyone in the Dominion knew this, yet this monster had opened his door to save her. This monster was now heating water to clean her wound. This monster moved carefully and spoke softly, as if trying not to frighten her. "The burn went deep," Marcus said, examining her shoulder under a medical scanner. "The tissue is damaged, but I can treat it. You need to hold still." Lyanna flinched when he reached for her, but she did not pull away. She was too weak to run, too exhausted to fight. If the human wanted to kill her, she could not stop him. He did not kill her. He cleaned the wound with gentle hands, applied healing gel, and wrapped it in clean bandages. His touch was careful, almost tender. "How did you get this?" Marcus asked. Lyanna hesitated. The truth was dangerous. The truth had already cost her everything. "Dominion soldiers," she finally whispered. "They came to kill me. I ran into the storm, because it was the only way to escape." Marcus sat back, his expression unreadable. Why would Dominion soldiers want to kill one of their own archivists? Lyanna's eyes widened. "How do you know I am an archivist?" "Your markings." He pointed to the faded symbols on her clothing. "That pattern is used by the Velani Historical Records Division. I studied your culture before coming to this world." For the first time, Lyanna felt something other than fear. Curiosity. This human had studied her people. He recognized her rank and profession just from looking at her clothes. He was not the mindless beast she had been taught to expect. "3 weeks ago," Lyanna began slowly, "I found something in the archives. An error. Files that had been changed. Historical records that did not match older documents." She paused, gathering her courage. "I found evidence of 17 species that supposedly went extinct over the past 400 years. Natural disasters, they said. Disease. Self-destruction. But the old files, the ones nobody was supposed to access, told a different story." Marcus leaned forward. "What kind of story?" "Murder." The word hung in the air between them. The Dominion did not watch those species die. The Dominion killed them. Every single one. And then they erased the evidence from every archive in the galaxy. Outside, lightning cracked across the sky. The shelter shook with the force of the electromagnetic pulse. When the lights stabilized, Marcus was staring at her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "I have been on this planet for 11 months, he said quietly. "I came here to study microorganisms and weather patterns. But I found something else in the soil." He stood and walked to a storage locker at the far end of the shelter. When he returned, he carried a metal box filled with strange objects. Pottery fragments. Carved stones. A small device that looked like a communication unit. "These belong to a species called the Thesari," Marcus explained. "According to the Dominion's records, the Thesari went extinct 4 centuries ago. A volcanic eruption destroyed their civilization." He held up one of the pottery fragments. It was decorated with beautiful geometric patterns. "This piece is less than 50 years old." Lyanna felt her blood turn cold. "That is impossible." "That is what I thought. But the carbon dating does not lie. The Thesari did not go extinct 400 years ago. They were alive until very recently. And then something happened to them." He set the fragment down carefully, something that someone wanted to hide. Lyanna's mind raced. Her archival discoveries and his archaeological findings pointed in the same terrible direction. The Dominion had been systematically destroying entire species and covering their tracks with lies and propaganda. "There is more," Lyanna said. Her voice trembled. "When I reported the anomalies to my superiors, they did not investigate. They did not ask questions. They immediately transferred me to Tempest 9, to a research station that turned out to not exist." She looked at Marcus with desperate eyes. "They sent me here to die. They wanted the storm to kill me so they would not have to do it themselves." When the storm came earlier than expected, they sent soldiers to finish the job. Marcus was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with understanding. You discovered their secret, and they could not let you live to tell anyone. But there is something worse, Lyanna continued. When I was fleeing through the archives, I copied one more file. A file I have not been able to read because it is encrypted with the highest security codes. She reached into her torn clothing and pulled out a small data chip. It is called the Culling Protocol, and it mentions Earth. The name of Marcus's homeworld hung in the air like a death sentence. He took the chip from her trembling fingers and inserted it into his personal computer. The screen filled with encrypted symbols, dense blocks of code that would take years to break. But the metadata, the basic information about the file, was visible. Marcus read it aloud. Culling Protocol 7. Classification: Supreme Command only. Target species: human. Status: active. Estimated completion: 6 standard months. Lyanna watched the color drain from his face. What does it mean? She asked. Marcus turned to look at her. His eyes held a fear she had never expected to see in a human. It means the Dominion is not just hiding their past crimes. They are planning a new one. His jaw tightened. They are going to try to exterminate humanity. And they have been preparing for it for a very long time. Outside, the storm raged with fury that seemed almost alive. Inside the shelter, a human and a Vellani stared at each. Other as the full weight of their discovery settled over them, the Dominion had killed 17 species. Humanity was going to be the 18th, unless someone stopped them. Lyanna looked at the human who had saved her life, the monster who was not a monster at all. For the first time since she started running, she felt something other than fear. She felt hope. What do we do? She asked. Marcus stood up and walked to the window. The storm painted the sky in shades of purple and black. Somewhere beyond those clouds, Dominion soldiers were waiting. First, we survive this storm, he said. Then we figure out how to get this evidence to people who can do something about it. He turned back to face her. And then we teach the Dominion what happens when they make an enemy of humanity. Lyanna did not know what that meant, but the look in his eyes told her that the Dominion had made a terrible mistake. They had tried to kill the messenger. They had only made her stronger, and now she had a human on her side. The second day of the storm brought disaster. Marcus woke to the sound of alarms screaming through the shelter. Red warning lights flashed across every surface. The environmental systems were failing. What is happening? Lyanna called out, her forearms reaching for something stable as the floor shook beneath them. Marcus ran to the control panel. His fingers flew across the screens, checking system after system. The answer was not good. Power coupling failure, he said through gritted teeth. The electromagnetic pulses are stronger than expected. They have damaged the connection between our backup generator and the life support system. Can you fix it? The coupling is in the maintenance shaft. The shaft is flooded with toxic gas that leaked through a cracked seal. He pulled up a schematic on his screen. If I do not repair it in the next 20 minutes, we lose oxygen recycling. We suffocate within 6 hours. Lyanna felt her hearts pound faster. She had 2 hearts, like all Vellani, and right now, both of them were racing with fear. The toxic gas, she said. Is it lethal to both of us? Marcus shook his head. It will kill you in minutes. For humans, it is just very uncomfortable. Our respiratory systems can filter out most of the poison. He was already moving toward the maintenance shaft, grabbing tools from the wall. Wait, Lyanna said. You are going in there yourself? I am the only one who can survive the exposure long enough to make the repair. He looked back at her. Stay here. Monitor the oxygen levels. If I am not back in 15 minutes. He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to doubt. Marcus opened the shaft access panel. A cloud of greenish gas billowed out, filling the air with a sharp chemical smell. He took one last breath of clean air and climbed inside. Lyanna watched him disappear into the poisonous darkness. She had been taught that humans were selfish, that they cared only about their own survival, that they would sacrifice anyone and anything to save themselves. Yet here was a human crawling through toxic gas. To save her life, the minutes stretched like hours. Lyanna stared at the oxygen readout, watching the numbers slowly decline. 90%, 85, 80. She heard coughing from inside the shaft. Deep, painful coughing that sounded like it was tearing the human's lungs apart. Marcus? She called out. Are you alive? More coughing. Then his voice, weak but determined. Almost ... there ... 75% oxygen. 70. The lights flickered. The alarms grew louder. Then, suddenly, everything went quiet. The oxygen readout stabilized. The warning lights turned green. The life support hummed back to life with renewed power. Marcus crawled out of the shaft and collapsed on the floor. His face was pale. His eyes were red and streaming. He coughed so hard that Lyanna thought he might break something inside himself. But he was smiling. Fixed it, he gasped. Lyanna knelt beside him. Without thinking, she reached out and touched his face with one of her 4 hands. His skin was hot, feverish from the toxic exposure. Why? She asked. Why did you risk yourself for me? Marcus looked up at her. You are in my shelter. That makes you my responsibility. The words made no sense to Lyanna. In Dominion society, responsibility was assigned by commanders and enforced by law. You did not choose to be responsible for strangers. You did not risk your life for people who did not belong to your family or your unit. But humans, she was beginning to realize, were very different from what she had been taught. As Marcus recovered, Lyanna made a decision. She pulled out her data chip and connected it to his computer again. The culling protocol file, she said. I have been thinking about the encryption. There might be a way to decode part of it using archive keys I memorized during my training. Marcus sat up, interested despite his exhaustion. For the next 3 hours, they worked together. Lyanna provided fragments of encryption algorithms she remembered from her years in the Historical Records Division. Marcus applied his scientific training to identify patterns in the code. Slowly, piece by piece, they began to unlock the document. What they found made the storm outside seem gentle by comparison. The culling protocol was not just a plan. It was a carefully designed extermination program that had been running for decades. First, the Dominion had spread propaganda about human violence and savagery throughout galaxy. They had made sure that no species would ally with humanity when the time came. Second, they had positioned agents inside human supply chains and diplomatic missions. For years, these agents had been sabotaging relationships and weakening Earth's position in interstellar politics. Third, they had built a secret fleet of warships, hidden in the empty space between star systems. This fleet was designed for one purpose only: the complete destruction of human civilization. The final phase was scheduled to begin in 6 months. By then, humanity would be isolated, weakened, and completely unprepared for the attack that was coming. They learned from their mistakes, Marcus said quietly. The species they destroyed before, they killed them quickly and created explanations later. But humans fought back during first contact. Humans refused to surrender. So the Dominion has been patient. They have spent decades preparing to destroy us. Lyanna felt sick. She had served the Dominion her entire life. She had believed in their mission of galactic order and peace. Now she understood that everything she believed was a lie. I am sorry, she whispered. I did not know. My people did not know. Marcus shook his head. This is not your fault. The Dominion kept this secret from their own citizens, as well as from everyone else. He stood up and walked to the window. The storm was beginning to weaken. Gaps appeared in the swirling clouds, revealing patches of dark sky beyond. The storm will be over by tomorrow morning, he said. And when it ends, whoever is looking for you will come looking for us both. As if in answer to his words, his sensor system chirped with a new alert. Ships in orbit. Multiple contacts. Military signatures. Dominion warships, waiting for the clouds to clear. They had found the shelter. They had tracked either Lyanna or the emergency beacon Marcus had activated during the power coupling failure. Either way, the result was the same dot when the storm ended. The killing would begin. Marcus turned to Lyanna. His eyes had changed. The gentle scientist was gone. In his place stood something harder, something more dangerous. I was not always a researcher, he said quietly. Before I studied microorganisms, I served in Earth's frontier corps. I was trained to survive on hostile worlds. I was trained to fight against superior numbers. He walked to a storage locker. She had not noticed before and began pulling out equipment she did not recognize. The Dominion thinks they are hunting an archivist and a scientist, Marcus continued. They are wrong. He loaded a weapon with practiced hands. They are hunting a soldier. And soldiers do not run. Lyanna looked at this human, this monster who was not a monster, and finally understood why the Dominion was so afraid of his species. Humans did not give up. Humans did not surrender. And when you threatened their homes and their families, humans became the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. The storm was ending. The real fight was about to begin. The storm died with the she. Sunrise. Marcus stood at the window, watching the last clouds dissolve into pale morning light. The air outside was still toxic, still filled with electromagnetic residue, but that would clear within hours. And when it cleared, the Dominion ships would send down their soldiers. We have maybe 4 hours, Marcus said. That is how long it will take for the atmosphere to stabilize enough for their dropships to land. Lyanna stood beside him, still amazed by the transformation she had witnessed. The quiet scientist who had treated her wounds and shared his research was gone. In his place stood a warrior who moved with deadly efficiency. What do we do? She asked. They have warships. They have hundreds of soldiers. We are 2 people in a research station. Marcus smiled. It was not a comforting smile. We do what humans do best, he said. We make them regret coming here. For the next 2 hours, Marcus worked without rest. He showed Lyanna how to rig scientific equipment into weapons and traps. Gas canisters became explosive devices. Sensor arrays became early warning systems. Even the shelter's own walls could be turned against intruders. But the traps were not meant to win the fight. They were meant to buy time. There is a place in the eastern mountains, Marcus explained. Deep caves that block sensor readings. I found them during my first month here. The Dominion satellites cannot see through the rock. If we can reach those caves, we can hide long enough to call for help. Call who? Lyanna asked. Earth is days away. No human ships could reach us in time. We do not need human ships, Marcus replied. We need witnesses. The Galactic Council monitors emergency frequencies across all member worlds. If we broadcast the evidence on the right channels, ships from a dozen different species will come to investigate. He held up the data chip containing the culling protocol. The Dominion has been hiding their crimes for centuries. They control the flow of information. They rewrite history to suit their needs. But if we can get this evidence in front of the Council, they cannot hide anymore. The plan was simple. Reach the caves. Send the broadcast. Survive long enough for help to arrive. Simple, but far from easy. The first dropships appeared just after noon. Marcus watched them descend through his sensor display. 6 ships, carrying maybe 30 soldiers each. 180 trained killers, all hunting for 2 survivors. They are landing 2 kilometers east, he said. They expect us to run west, toward the nearest settlement. We go north, toward the mountains. They slipped out of the shelter through a maintenance tunnel Marcus had modified months ago. The acidic air stung their skin, but the protective suits he had prepared kept them alive. Behind them, the first soldiers approached the station. Weapons ready. The first trap triggered 30 seconds after the Dominion team entered the shelter. The explosion shook the ground even from 2 kilometers away. Marcus did not look back. He knew what damage the trap would cause. More importantly, he knew it would make the Dominion angry. Angry enemies made mistakes. The chase lasted 3 hours. Marcus led Lyanna through terrain that should have been impossible to cross. He found paths between volcanic vents and acidic pools. He used the lingering electromagnetic interference to blind the Dominion sensors. He moved like a ghost through a world designed to kill anything that walked upon it. Lyanna struggled to keep up. Her 4 arms gave her good balance, but her body was not built for this kind of endurance. Twice she stumbled. Twice Marcus caught her and kept her moving. "Why are you helping me?" She gasped as they climbed a rocky slope. "You could move faster alone. You could save yourself." Marcus paused just long enough to look her in the eyes. "I told you before. You are in my shelter. That has not changed." The Dominion soldiers were not prepared for Tempest 9. Their armor was designed for standard combat environments, not for a world where the air itself was a weapon. Their sensors, so sophisticated in normal conditions, were useless in the electromagnetic chaos left by the storm. Their commanders, trained to fight conventional battles, did not know how to chase a human through hostile terrain. Marcus used every advantage. He led pursuing squads into unstable ground that collapsed under their weight. He triggered secondary traps that cut off escape routes. He used the acidic atmosphere to corrode their equipment, but the Dominion had numbers. No matter how many soldiers fell, more came to replace them. By late afternoon, Marcus and Lyanna reached the cliff overlooking the volcanic canyon. The cave entrance was visible on the far side, a dark opening in the rock that promised safety. But between them and the cave stood a 1,000-meter drop into churning lava. And behind them, Dominion soldiers were closing in. "There is no way across," Lyanna said, her voice filled with despair. "We are trapped." Marcus reached into his pack and pulled out a small device. 6 months ago, he said, I found a crashed escape pod in this canyon. The pilot did not survive, but the pod was intact. I repaired it and hid it at the bottom of the cliff. Lyanna stared at him. "You are saying we should jump?" "I am saying we should fall with style." The soldiers emerged from the rocks behind them. At their head walked Commander Thresh, a decorated Dominion officer whose face was scarred from a dozen campaigns. His weapon was aimed directly at Marcus. "The human and the traitor," Thresh said. "The Dominion will reward me well for your capture." Marcus looked at Lyanna. Lyanna looked at Marcus. They jumped. The fall lasted an eternity. Wind screamed past them as they plunged toward the glowing lava below. Lyanna's 4 arms reached for something to grab, anything to stop the fall. Then Marcus activated the beacon. The escape pod shot upward from its hiding place, catching them in its open hatch. The impact knocked the breath from Lyanna's lungs, but she was alive. They were both alive. Marcus sealed the hatch and fired the engines. The pod rocketed toward orbit, leaving the stunned Dominion soldiers far behind. "They will pursue us," Lyanna said, as the sky turned from orange to black. "Their warships are waiting." Marcus was already working the communication controls. "I know," he said. "That is why we are not running." He activated the emergency broadcast system and began transmitting on every frequency the pod could reach. "Priority Alpha," his voice echoed across the stars. "Evidence of genocide. Culling protocol exposed. Requesting immediate council tribunal. All ships are asked to witness." The message reached Earth's distant fleet. It reached neutral trading stations. It reached council monitoring posts across 3 sectors. And it reached the Dominion warships, who suddenly realized they could not destroy the pod without being seen by half the galaxy. Marcus leaned back in his seat as ships from a dozen different species began converging on their location. "Now," he said, "the real battle begins." The truth was no longer hiding. In a data chip, the truth was about to face the Galactic Council. The Galactic Council chamber was even larger than Lyanna had imagined. She stood beside Marcus on the defendant's platform, looking up at 12,000 alien faces staring down at them. Representatives from 800 civilizations had gathered to witness this trial. Some had traveled for days to be here. Others watched through holographic links from distant worlds. The Dominion wanted this to be a public execution of truth. It would become something very different. High Arbiter Voss called the assembly to order. His booming voice silenced the murmuring crowd. "We are gathered to hear charges against the human Marcus Webb and the Velani citizen Lyanna. They stand accused of attacking Dominion military personnel, destroying Dominion property, and spreading false information designed to damage relations between member species." Ambassador Krell rose from his seat, his purple robes flowing like liquid as he moved. "The evidence is clear," Krell declared. "The human attacked our soldiers without provocation. He kidnapped a Dominion citizen and corrupted her mind with lies. He seeks to destabilize the peace that the Dominion has maintained for centuries." Krell pointed at Marcus with 3 long fingers. "Humanity has always been a threat to galactic civilization. This human proves what we have always known. They are violent. They are deceptive. They cannot be trusted." The crowd murmured in agreement. Many of these species had grown up hearing the same stories about humans that Lyanna had been taught. Monsters from a death world. Predators who could not live in peace. High Arbiter Voss turned to Marcus. "The human will respond to these charges." Marcus stepped forward. His voice was calm, but it carried to every corner of the massive chamber. "I do not deny what I did on Tempest 9. I destroyed Dominion equipment. I fought Dominion soldiers. I helped Lyanna escape those who wanted to kill her." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But I was not the aggressor. I was defending an innocent woman from assassins. And the reason they wanted her dead is the same reason they want me dead now." He held up the data chip. "Because we discovered the truth." Ambassador Krell laughed. "More lies. The human has no proof of anything except his own crimes." "Then you will not mind if I present my witness," Marcus replied. He gestured toward Lyanna. Every eye in the chamber turned to the silver-skinned woman standing beside him. Lyanna felt her hearts pounding as she stepped forward. She had served the Dominion her entire life. Speaking against them felt like betraying everything she had ever known. But silence was a greater betrayal. "My name is Lyanna," she began. Her voice trembled, but she did not stop. "I was an archivist in the Historical Records Division of Vela Prime. 3 weeks ago, I discovered files that had been altered, records that had been changed to hide the truth." She took a deep breath. "I found evidence that 17 species did not go extinct through natural causes. The Dominion destroyed them, and then the Dominion erased all proof of their crimes." The chamber exploded with noise. Representatives shouted questions. Accusations flew from every direction. Ambassador Krell demanded that Lyanna be silenced. High Arbiter Voss raised one massive arm. Silence fell instantly. "Continue," he said to Lyanna. She told them everything. The altered records. The missing species. The soldiers who came to kill her. The storm she survived. And the human who saved her life when she expected him to take it. "I was taught that humans were monsters," Lyanna said. "I believed it my entire life. But when I ran into his shelter, seeking safety from those who wanted me dead, this human did not hurt me. He helped me. He risked his life to repair equipment that was keeping us both alive. He carried me through hostile terrain when I could not walk." She looked at Marcus. "Everything I was taught about humans was a lie. Just like everything the Dominion told us about those 17 species was a lie." Marcus stepped forward again. "But we have more than testimony," he said. "We have physical evidence." He activated the holographic display behind them. Images appeared in the air. Artifacts from Tempest 9, documents from the archives, fragments of the decrypted culling protocol. "This is a data core recovered from a Thesari emergency beacon," Marcus explained. "The Thesari were supposed to have gone extinct 400 years ago. But this beacon was active 50 years ago, and it contains recordings of their final moments." He pressed a control. A voice filled the chamber. It spoke in an ancient language, but the translation matrix converted it for everyone to understand. "This is Governor Tith of the Thesari Third Colony. Dominion warships have entered our orbit. They are demanding immediate surrender. We have done nothing wrong. We only asked for fair representation in galactic trade. Please, if anyone can hear this, remember what happened to us. Remember that we existed. Remember that we did not deserve to die." The recording ended with the sound of explosions. Then silence. 12,000 representatives sat in stunned quiet. The evidence was undeniable. The Dominion had murdered an entire species simply for asking for fair treatment. High Arbiter Voss turned to Ambassador Krell. "How does the Dominion respond?" Krell's composure finally cracked. His purple face darkened with rage. "The Dominion has maintained galactic stability for 800 years, he snarled. "We have kept the peace when no one else could. If certain species had to be removed for the greater good, then so be it. You need us. Without the Dominion, this galaxy would collapse into chaos." "You admit it," Marcus said quietly. "You admit that you destroyed 17 species. And you were planning to destroy humanity next." He displayed the final piece of evidence, the culling protocol. Fully decoded. This document outlines a plan to exterminate human civilization within 6 months. It has been in development for decades. The propaganda, the isolation, the sabotage of our diplomatic relationships. It was all preparation for genocide. Marcus turned to face the full assembly. "You have spent 400 years believing that humans are monsters. The Dominion spread that lie because they could not conquer us, and they could not allow you to see us as we truly are." He gestured to Lyanna. "She ran into my shelter expecting to find a monster. She found a person who chose to help her. Now she is standing here, risking everything, because she knows the truth." He raised his voice. "Humanity is not asking for your approval. We are not asking for your alliance. We are simply showing you what the Dominion really is. What you do with that truth is your choice." The vote was called. For the first time in galactic history, the Council ruled against the Dominion. The culling protocol was publicly condemned. Economic sanctions were imposed. An independent investigation was ordered into all species. The Dominion had declared extinct. The Dominion's grip on galactic politics had finally begun to crack. Weeks later, Lyanna stood with Marcus on the observation deck of an Earth diplomatic vessel. Through the viewport, she could see a blue and green planet growing larger as they approached. Earth, the death world, the home of monsters. What happens now? She asked. Marcus stood beside her, watching his homeworld come into view. Now we prove that everything they said about us was wrong. Not with words, not with politics, but by being exactly what we have always been. And what is that? Marcus smiled, and this time the smile was warm. People who run toward the storm. People who open their doors to strangers. People who fight for what is right, even when the whole galaxy tells them they are wrong. Lyanna felt something she had never expected to feel. Hope. She had survived the storm by running into a human's shelter. Now she was going to help humanity weather the storm that was coming. And together, they would show the galaxy what monsters truly looked like.